Despite this being an MMA channel, Alistair Overeem winning the K1 kickboxing world title is still one of the greatest achievements inside MMA history. Because at the same time he was the kickboxing champion, he held 2 world titles in major MMA promotions, a truly unique achievement that may never again be replicated. But not only was he the champion, he was terrifying people.
Oh my God, that is not human, that physique.
Overeem is humongous. I mean, my God, he looks like he's getting bigger and bigger with every show.
You could show a movie on his chest.
But this monster had come out of nowhere, built from a lanky, inconsistent light heavyweight who had struggled in his career. But this was a transformation so extreme, it came with a cloud of controversy and suspicions that never went away. But just how and why was Overeem created, and how exactly did he dominate 2 combat sports at once? Well, I'm Balian from MMA On Point, and this is the story of the demolition era and the reign of Alistair Overeem. Chapter 1: Metamorphosis. Alistair, after moving countries from the UK to the Netherlands at just 6 years old, it's pretty understandable. As the new kid with the weird accent, he experienced bullying. He had a hard time fitting in, but he had his older brother Valentine. It wasn't until Overeem got his first job though, at just 13 years old, yeah, not sure if that's normal or even legal in Holland, it was actually the reality of having this dead-end job that made him want to change his life.
There's a really shitty job, but that really ignited a certain fire in me to become independent, to beat the financial system.
Alistair had already started some sports like judo and athletics, but it was nothing that would have led to a career or anything he was taking seriously. But one night, everything changed. Apparently while out at a bar at just 15 years old, again, maybe that's normal in Holland, but he got into a bar fight and a guy decided to pick up a bottle and break it on his face. He'd have 15 stitches and the scar on his cheek would be a reminder forever. And it was his brother who was responsible for what happened next.
Well, then I had my brother, 4 years old. He was fighting, had the respect, his own car, his own apartment, money always. So I kind of followed in his footsteps.
Valentine was older, bigger, and didn't just walk into any martial arts gym. He started training with Chris Dolman. Now, the lineage of his gym goes right back to guys like John Blooming, a Dutch army veteran whose tours took him to places like Korea and eventually Japan, where he began learning martial arts from practitioners with hundreds of years of lineage. But while Valentine loved it, Alistair didn't. He would get beaten up regularly, but he'd get the chance to even train with guys like Bas Rutten. This was right around the time his career was taking off in Pancrase, with him winning the title, and he'd come from the same kickboxing lineage as well.
I met him when I was young. I think I was like 15 or 16, and we trained for a little bit. My brother actually took me. Yeah, some techniques here and there, not really. I mean, he has a lot of information, but I didn't see him that often.
Once Alistair had found inspiration, he started to develop as a fighter, the path in front of him becoming pretty clear.
Full focus, everything I knew, every little button I could twist towards victory I would do. Everything was maximum priority. Sleep, train, eat, go train over there, go train over there.
Even though Overeem had been learning mixed martial arts in Holland, the Dutch kickboxing style had always been a big part of that. And in 1999, at just 19 years old, a very tall and lanky Alistair Overeem made his combat sports debut in kickboxing. But this version of Alistair wasn't just slaughtering everybody. He was scrappy, but after 3 2-minute rounds, his pro kickboxing debut had been a successful one. Before the year was out, he got an offer to fight in the Dutch It's Showtime promotion in MMA, and it was a chance for him to put everything together. And boy was he wild. It was actually his grappling and training with a well-rounded guy like Chris Dolman that won him a lot of these early fights.
In the Netherlands, nobody has a wrestling base. You know how easy I just dove into somebody, boom, and that would be a win.
I mean, a lot of these early Overeem fights went this way. He picked up a ton of submission wins in his first few years.
Overeem taking his opponent to the floor right now, position to side mount, in side mount position. Well, there it is, the arm lock, and Peter the Sweeper taps out.
Also a natural weapon for Alistair was his devastating knee strikes, and even in his early fights you can see him adopt this kind of strategy of throw knees, take him down, and get an easy submission. But even with this success, going up against tougher opponents when he entered promotions like rings in Japan and Russia, he just wasn't fully developed as a fighter. Even as young as he was, in the very early stages of his career, Overeem had a ton of success as a light heavyweight, and they even came up with a nickname to help promote him, the Demolition Man.
The Hammer, it started out as like, hey, we need to do something for your image, where do you want to be? And I like, we were just actually watching Demolition Man. That was my gimmick in the beginning.
In 2002, Overeem was asked to enter a one-night tournament in the Netherlands under the Too Hot to Handle promotion, the biggest in Holland at the time and his biggest opportunity. This first round was kind of crazy though.
Alistair bending over backwards, almost getting taken down. Alistair getting out of trouble, standing back up. Boys, you're going to go for a Kimura lock here. Alistair inside mount. Alistair may have a submission here. It's a matter of time. He taps out. Alistair Overeem.
Incredible.
And he still had to win once more if he wanted to take home the trophy.
The chances that he had in escape there went the only time when he can have a position.
The fight is over.
Turns out Dave was not alright, they called it, and Overeem had won the tournament. Alistair's career was about to take a massive step up in competition and profile. At the start of the year, he'd already appeared in Pride FC, kneeing Yusuke Imamura into oblivion in just 44 seconds. But after this hot to handle tournament win, they started offering him more and more competition that he was passing with flying colours.
Oh, good right hand, but look, oh, he's got it. Fight's over. It's got to be the knee here. Yeah. Right there.
Oh, the body, that's it.
That was it.
His brutal knees got the job done again, and a few months later, he even beat Krokop's protege.
Batman is in trouble. There it is. Wham, bam, pow. Batman has been stopped.
3 victories in his first year in Pride marked him out as a young talent to watch, but despite his size, his lack of experience and composure started to show.
Everything was mysterious.
Yeah.
At the event, you didn't understand anything. You just got your envelope, right? Envelope cash.
Yeah.
Flew in, flew out.
And although with all of this, Alistair had booked himself a slot in the Pride 2003 Grand Prix, it was really the start of a shift into a completely different animal. Chapter 2, Becoming Overeem. 2 months after his last win, Overeem was once again back in Japan, this time at the Saitama Super Arena for one of the most watched events of the year. The middleweight tournament was absolutely stacked, with Vanderlei Silva, Rampage Jackson, Murilo Bustamante, and flying in from the UFC, Chuck Liddell, with Dana White putting down 250 grand for him to win the whole thing. And that's who Alistair got in the first round. And it's when things first became apparent that perhaps what he was currently doing was not going to work at the highest level.
I was 23 when I fought him, didn't know anything. Training was not good, no strength and conditioning. Lucien was a kind of a traditional coach, and his stuff didn't work. Putting so much energy and effort into workouts, but that was not the reality of what came out in the fights.
Alistair was competitive early, but he ended up getting caught by the Iceman's signature overhand right.
Two rights, three rights, and a knee. Alistair definitely hurt.
He'd been beaten badly, and his 12-fight win streak was over. It had put a firm halt to his momentum. Overeem was able to build himself back up, but soon enough, yet again, Pride produced another seriously tough matchup with the brother of the former heavyweight champion Nogueira. Little Nog was a serious threat on the feet with a traditional boxing pedigree, and on the ground among the elite of Brazilian black belts at the time.
I want to show my Muay Thai.
Well, I hope he does. Quite frankly, he can do nothing standing up.
But Overeem was wrong, and Lil Nog dragged him into deep waters.
Now it does look like the tank is beginning to empty for Overeem. He showed heart, did not surrender, he did not submit. He went the distance, even though, boss, like you say, in that third round, he was simply out of gas.
There was a bit of a pattern going on. On the one hand, Alistair would run through certain competition, but on the other, he just couldn't step up to that top level. It was actually around this time he entered the European Abu Dhabi grappling trials, and he won the whole thing, qualifying for the ADCC World Championships. But he ultimately declined because he was given a spot in the next Pride Middleweight Grand Prix in 2005. This time, he came in more determined than ever to win, but in round 1 he drew Vitor Belfort, who had multiple victories in Pride, but shockingly, Overeem handed the BJJ black belt his first ever submission loss.
And he's got a good guillotine.
And he taps out! Vitor Belfort is forced to tap out in the first round!
It was by far the biggest scalp Alistair had collected. In the finals, Overeem ran into Shogun Hua, another young kid who was just unstoppable on his way to the top. They slugged it out for 7 minutes, but ultimately, once again, Alistair's cardio failed him and he was defeated. It was another loss when the chips were down, and was a really big turning point for Alistair, and is where his story starts to change. Overeem had to mix things up. He'd lost multiple times as a light heavyweight and decided his best chances at winning now was to mix things up at heavyweight. But his initial success was immediately short-lived. Pride spared him no favors, booking him against Sergey Kharitonov, a top 5 Pride world heavyweight. People didn't really know how he was going to deal with a bigger man, which is why when he did, it was all the more impressive.
Kharitonov is blocking those shots with his face. It's over! Alistair Overeem has recorded the win over Sergey Kharitonov!
But the reality was this would be Alistair's only meaningful win going forward for quite some time. That win booked him a spot in the heavyweight Grand Prix, and he might have done fairly well if he didn't draw the BJJ black belt Fabricio Verdum in the first round. And in that fight, Overeem was again forced to tap.
Get it here, Mike, get it here, that's it.
And it's over.
Oh, my
Fabricio
goodness.
Verdum has indeed submitted Alistair Overeem.
For Alistair, this loss was just the beginning of what would be several defeats. In fact, the worst losing streak of his entire career.
Caught him with that left
He's
hand.
stunned.
Wait a minute, the corner now
Oh, my
throwing in the
goodness.
towel. 2001.
Oh, that's it. That's it. He tapped out. Looks like he got a little eye damage.
And finally, in a rematch with Shogun, he got flatlined.
Another big punch.
But in a video about a guy who was supposed to have this era of undefeated dominance, why have we just spent this first chapter and a half talking about his losses? Well, I think it's because it makes this next part all the more important, and if you want to look a little deeper, all the more understandable.
Then I hit Pride. That was a sort of roof, or ceiling. Competition was really high.
Overeem has talked about this period of his career being a very bad time, with several things happening at once. First of all, he thought he was going to lose his mum. She had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer and wasn't expected to live long at all. At the same time, his daughter had just been born, and he really struggled with splitting time between his family and training. It all led to a ton of stress, a build-up of negativity, and during this time he also lost those 3 fights in a row. Overeem's talked about this period in hindsight, saying he should have just taken a break from fighting entirely, but he couldn't. He had to keep fighting because it was his job. He needed the money. But no one struggles hard and doesn't come out the other side of it a new person. Overeem signed a new 5-year contract at Golden Glory, a gym of elite kickboxers and MMA fighters in Holland. It was from this point on he began his transformation into a complete machine. The Overeem. He had never been more desperate in his career, had never needed to win more, and he'd proven that at the highest level what he was already doing just wasn't cutting it. Overeem boarded a plane back to Japan, ready to step back into the heavyweight division, and on a heroes card he was again matched with Sergey Kharitonov in a rematch. And he was immediately noticeably bigger. But this time, despite that, Alistair was overpowered as he stood toe-to-toe with Kharitonov.
바디 들어왔어, 바디. 바디 들어왔습니다. 지금 바디 들어왔어요. 라이트 어퍼. 네. 때리기 몰아붙입니다. 자, 몸을 돌리. 자, 라이트 다운됩니다. 자, 여기서 라이브리 스탑 경기가 납니다.
It wasn't a good look for Overeem. He was now 25-11 in MMA. Not a record you'd look at and really expect anything great to come from, and he'd just been KO'd again, this time at heavyweight. If he really wanted to reinvent himself, he couldn't stop there. Strikeforce in the US had started to expand their roster, and despite the recent losses, they booked Overeem against Paul Buentello in the main event for the first ever Strikeforce heavyweight title. This was basically a brand new division for Strikeforce, but Overeem had just lost 6 of his last 10 fights. Now, I want to give a quick shout out to Kaposa on Twitter for pulling this fight out of the archives, because this event isn't even on UFC Fight Pass. It wasn't a particularly impressive performance, but Overeem had never looked bigger and eventually finished Paul.
Falls down and tapping. That body shot was tremendous with that knee.
Overeem is the champion of Strikeforce in the heavyweight division.
Overeem's massive size gain, though, hadn't gone unnoticed. There was a lot of speculation that performance-enhancing drugs were part of the reason, and his gym Golden Glory had been heavily accused by other fighters of almost encouraging it. At the time of winning the Strikeforce title, right then and there though, it wasn't really thought of as much, especially not at the heavyweight division. Soon though, more opportunities presented themselves for Alistair. He got a call from a new promotion in Japan. Dream had formed itself from the ashes of Pride, and they wanted Alistair, who emerged looking like a reborn version of himself.
I hear such crazy stories right now from Holland that his striking is really phenomenal.
Hurt his ankle, it looked like in that area. But now he comes back, and that's a good right, and that follows it up with the knee, and that quickly Overeem has ended this.
This was the perfect platform for the new Overeem to start running through the competition. The following month, he was matched up with kickboxing legend Mark Hunt.
Alistair Overeem again taking this fight on about 3 days' notice. And he slams Alistair down.
Armbar.
He's trying to end it here early.
And if he extends
here
now,
is
he's gonna
Alistair
get it.
Overeem
He's got it.
stretching him out and ending it.
It all led to a massive showdown with the Pride legend Mirko Cro Cop. He'd briefly gone to the UFC, but as soon as Dream was created, he was there at the very first show. And now Dream wanted to put on one of the greatest heavyweight striking fights of all time.
See, when I fought Cro Cop, he did not want to fight, so I had to be a little bit in his face to make the fight happen. I didn't have real beef with him, but I had to trigger him.
But this fight, sadly, did not go the way everyone expected.
And there's a good knee from Overeem. Cro Cop says it might be too low. Whoa. And again, a knee and another one. Overeem with that knee, and that might have been low.
But after already taking a few minutes to recover after that last one, and even then still barely coming back, well, this happens.
Blood from a cut just over his left eye. We're getting the groin there.
Cro Cop was down for several minutes, and with the doctors around him, you've seen at this point how devastating those knees are, and imagine getting hit with one of them in the junk. Bas Rutten even says one of his testicles popped up inside him. Cro Cop could not continue. The fight was a no contest, and it left a bit of a sour taste in Alistair's mouth.
The Cro Cop fight, and then that kind of went a little bit sour, a little bit no contest. They said, no, Cro Cop is not available. You need to fight K1 rules, and you know how they were in Japan, right? They just throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
I never had a plan to become K1 champion initially.
What happened next, though, was the start of one of the biggest rivalries in combat sports at the time. Not a rematch with Cro Cop, but a K1 kickboxing bout with the legend Badr Hari. Hari was a devastating KO artist and a multiple-time heavyweight K1 and kickboxing champion. Now, two champions from two different combat sports were throwing it down on New Year's Eve. Alistair clipped him early, was trying to close the distance and land those knees. Alistair's first fight had been in kickboxing, but as far as his official record shows, he'd barely competed, mainly focusing on MMA. But here he was giving the heavyweight world champion all he could handle. Badr Hari got up, but Alistair finished the job. It had taken just one round to beat the K1 champion. Overeem had just set himself up for a phenomenal 2009. By this point, Alistair was completely comfortable in his new frame, and all the extra muscle he'd been able to add on was helping him run through his kickboxing competition. The fans had already started calling him by a new name, Overeem, and in MMA he was also simultaneously destroying his opposition.
Oh, and there we go now. That's a guillotine, and I know his guillotines. It's over. Thompson. Oh, jumping knee from Overeem. Thompson's going to get out of there.
He got a standing guillotine.
Oh, it's over. It's good night, Irene.
That year in 2009, the K1 World Grand Prix went down and he blasted through the opening round.
My God, that is not human, that physique. Heidi, oh, it's over. It's good night, Irene. Sashana is out cold. Open the fridge, he's out cold. Oh, no.
And then kickboxing fans worldwide got what they wanted, the rematch with Badr Hari, one of the most anticipated fights of the year. The bad blood between the two after the quick finish in the first had built and built.
Who will draw first blood? It's Badr Hari. And Alistair manhandles him, throws him to the canvas.
It looked like it was going to be a repeat of the first fight.
Right hand from Overeem, and he throws him into the turnbuckle, wrestling style.
But Badr had adjusted his strategy and was looking for that one perfect shot.
Pretty scared to step in there.
Oh, he's tagged him! He's tagged him! He's tagged him!
That's what I'm talking about.
And once he hurt him, he did not let up.
See, one more knockdown and it's over! One more knockdown and it's over! Here comes Hari! Here comes Hari! Go, Badr! Go, you crazy bastard! Go, Badr! Badr goes to the body! Uppercut, uppercut! There's the right hand! Oh, it's over! It's over! Yes! It's over!
Curry had served his revenge in the first round. 2009 had drawn more eyes to Overeem than ever, not just with his wins, but with how much he'd physically changed. But 2010 was about to set an entire new standard for combat sports. Chapter 3, the Triple Champ. Heading into the new year, he was still technically the Strikeforce heavyweight champion, and this year it actually meant something because throughout 2009 they'd really expanded that division. They picked up Andre Arlovski, Fabricio Verdum, Bigfoot Silva as well, and of course the last Pride heavyweight champion, the pound-for-pound best heavyweight on the planet, Fedor Emelianenko. In his return to Strikeforce, Overeem would instead face Brett Rogers, a Strikeforce homegrown talent that had lost to Fedor, but in that loss had landed a few good shots, and the aura of the invincible Fedor was starting to fade. And it was Alistair returning to fight in the US for the first time since 2007. The Reem looked bigger than ever, and now he was in front of a much more interrogative press. He was being asked about it much more as well.
There obviously the speculation of you staying out of the States for so long, the fact that you never have failed a drug test, then you had to come to America and meet the press and meet the fans online speculating about you.
I'm going to pass the test, and then that's a phase that has been passed.
He's one of those cocky, arrogant dudes that he feels that he's a god because of his appearance. You know, if it wasn't because of his Eastern diet, I'm pretty sure his appearance wouldn't look the same.
Cow beef, horse beef.
If you eat horse meat too.
You don't like that?
Of course, tons of people and a lot of the evidence pointed towards perhaps something else.
So if you eat like 6 or 7 times a day, you'll get big.
You get big. I eat 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. Then after training, I eat immediately, sleep. But before I sleep, I eat. That's number 4. Then when I wake up, I eat. Then I train again. Then I eat again after training, number 6. Then I go home, I eat big. And then I eat again before I go to bed, number 8. Fast. Fast metabolism.
Whatever was going on, he ended up walking through Brett Rogers like the infamous tire shop worker he was marketed as.
Rogers taking a lot of punishment, not answering. Alistair Overeem, quick work for the champ.
That win marked his 28th inside the first round, and it was pretty clear who he needed to fight next. As always, people outside the UFC are questioned for their ability, and despite these wins, Alistair was no different. The one man that could prove how good he was Fedor Emelianenko, but the fight just never came together. Instead, Fedor was booked to face Fabricio Verdum just 2 months later, not for the title, and the impossible happened. Fedor was forced to tap. This set up an inevitable rematch with Verdum to avenge his loss years prior. But first, he was heading back to K1. The 2010 Grand Prix had some incredible talents, including Ray Sefo, Semi Shield, Gokhan Saki, and Tyrone Spong, who he had to face in the first round. And on a night where you'd have to win 3 fights to win the tournament, these 2 men went 3 rounds. They even changed the rules so Overeem couldn't clinch with both hands and drill people in the face. Both men threw hell at each other, but Alistair took the decision. And then it was another kickboxing legend and his teammate in round 2, Gokhan Saki. Gokhan was injured from an earlier fight though and couldn't continue. And then just an hour later, he faced Peter Ertz for the K1 title in the final.
Alistair starts aggressively. Big right hand from the ring. And the ring trying to break those ribs again. A monstrous Overeem. Ertz has got to get out the corner here. Overeem unloading on him. Ertz is rocked. Ertz is rocked. Ertz is rocked. Overeem corner on the apron. Now ready to celebrate. It's good night, Overeem. Alistair Overeem is the K1 Grand Prix champion.
He was was now, for the first time ever, the owner of both a major MMA championship and a kickboxing one simultaneously. Something to this day that has never been replicated, and honestly, given the state of the sport, probably never will. You have to understand the level of elite striking that was in K1 at the time. Just think of what Alex Pereira was doing to people as a kickboxing champion, and we are talking about a man that beat them all and was also crushing everyone in MMA at the same time.
They went bankrupt, they didn't even pay me. Actually 4 fights, because the dream fight, they didn't pay me either. 4 fights, they didn't get paid. There's the promotions, well, they're not answering the phone, they're not answering emails anymore. What are you going to do?
There was a chance to make more history. An offer came down the phone just 20 days after fighting 3 men in one night to once again on New Year's Eve step into the dream ring and try and claim a 3rd world title. His opponent, Todd Duffy, was a human specimen with just 1 loss on his record, but all Overeem needed to crown himself a triple combat sports champion was 17 seconds.
Here comes the Hercules. Here comes the power. Curling right. Gut punching me from the ring. It's over. Goodbye, Overeem. Overeem is the dreaming true champion. In a heartbeat. Nobody, hear me, nobody can stop the reign.
His year's accomplishments were truly incredible, perhaps one of the greatest years ever, simply because of the success he was having across multiple combat sports, but he still had to defend the Strikeforce title.
Verdum just beat Fedor, and he was the man, and then they came up with the tournament, and I was in the tournament, Verdum was in the tournament, and then I had to make an adjustment, because I just did kickboxing for the last year and a half, full-fledged, not really ground, and that was a little bit intense.
Strikeforce created a heavyweight tournament, Fedor, Verdum, and a bunch of other heavyweight elites. Everything was going on the line, and more importantly, it was a chance at revenge against Verdum, and a chance to beat the man who just dethroned the best heavyweight ever. The fight, though, was kind of strange. Alistair kept sweeping and tripping Verdum, who would lay on his back, calling for Overeem to engage. It was the same way he subbed Fedor, and Overeem was having none of it.
So many details in that fight. Verdum is truly an excellent fighter. Somehow I just was onto him that fight, and I was able to kind of every time disengage and make him look really bad.
Overeem did fight smart, not allowing Verdum any chance to grapple with him. And although it wasn't a finish, he'd beaten a man many said would give him problems.
He actually outstruck me in that fight. I mean, it's not power strikes, but he outstruck me, broke my rib. I couldn't continue in the tournament. So then I got fired. Wow. Then I signed with UFC.
All of his achievements so far to date had been done outside the UFC, so when his debut was booked against the former champion Brock Lesnar, it was a chance to prove that, as many had suggested, his style would be a nightmare for the American wrestler Brock.
I flew in. Todd Duffy was because he was exactly the same size. I finished Todd exactly the way I finished Brock.
It was 2 of the biggest heavyweights in the UFC going head to head, and the winner was going to fight the champion.
Got the leg, and Overeem able to avoid the takedown. That's big. That is big.
Alistair was stalking Brock, taking his time, but with the first knee that landed, Brock was already hurt.
Big knee to the body, and answered by Lesnar.
Overeem smelt blood and went after him.
Brock looking for the another knee. Big punch. And he got blocked with the left hand. He's hurt. The kick to the body. So much punishment to the body. This is going to be it. That's it. It's over. It is all over. Wow. Alistair Overeem has defeated Brock Lesnar.
Overeem had officially arrived in the UFC. The unbeaten MMA streak now stretched 12 fights across 4 years. A man who conquered K1, Dream, Strikeforce, who had evolved from a lanky light heavyweight to one of the most feared heavyweights in combat sports history. For a moment, he stood as perhaps the greatest crossover athlete the sport had ever seen. And I would love to say that's where this story ends, but in truth, the elephant in the room finally had to be addressed. Then came the real blow to Overeem's legacy. He was finally booked to face the heavyweight champion, Junior Dos Santos, the shot he had earned. But before it could happen, drug testing in sport was evolving. And if you wanted to look at a fighter that didn't pass a sniff test, well, Alistair was rancid. And the commission was all too aware, so they took a somewhat unprecedented set of measures for the time and decided to randomly test Overeem at that press conference. The jig was up, and he tested positive. His license was denied, and everything he had built over those years, the streak, the mystique, the transformation into Overeem, suddenly came under scrutiny. What had once looked like the greatest second act in MMA history was now entangled in controversy, especially as the drug testing in the UFC only got harsher and his chiseled physique notably deflated, which led to even more suspicion and missed opportunities. And while Overeem would go on to compete in the UFC for nearly a decade afterward, that sense of invincibility, the aura of Overeem, never returned. Instead, what followed was kind of a long and complicated third act. Overeem became a fixture in the UFC heavyweight division, but the dominance he once displayed was inconsistent. He would lose fights he was heavily favored to win, getting knocked out in dramatic fashion more than once, and at times his performances just felt like echoes of a former self. And despite decent finishes over Stefan Struve, Junior Dos Santos, and Mark Hunt reminding everyone what he was capable of, those were flashes scattered amongst just as many setbacks. He became, in many ways, the definition of a hit-and-miss fighter, kind of returning to the man he was during his early Pride years. Gone was the hulking, blitzing juggernaut of his K1 prime. He had to rely on patience, footwork, and clinch control. While the legend of Overeem may have faded and the holes in his legacy glaringly pointed out, he did, however, manage to build a new one. He still earned a title shot against Stipe Miocic and nearly even got a second one, showcasing his adaptability despite it all. He continued to fight for many years, still a world-class technician, a multi-decade veteran who continued battling long after the major spotlight had dimmed and his own abuse had betrayed him. But I think it's impossible to truly ignore the once-in-a-lifetime achievements of Overeem in an era where, let's face it, steroid use was incredibly in your face and rampantly abused. Controversies aside, he was a man who was able to hold 3 world titles in 3 major promotions simultaneously, which is truly one of the most remarkable and unique combat sports achievements of all time. Alistair Overeem, right? What an insane badass, dude. Some of those K1 knockouts are just ridiculous. I mean, I could watch them all day. I want to give a big shout out, of course, to Luke Taylor, cool2me_. Go check out Charlie and Luke, the YouTube channel he's a part of right now, okay? He's banging out content, and give Luke Taylor some love. Thank you. Thank you to all the channel members out there. We appreciate the extra support, guys. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed getting these videos early and also joining in the writers meetings as well. If you want to become a channel member, guys, all the info, the details down below. Support the channel. It means a lot. Thank you, guys. Give us a like if you enjoyed it. Give us a comment as well. Let's talk about, the career of Overeem. Yeah, stay tuned for the next one, guys. We'll be banging them out. Let me know what you want to see next. I'll see you in the next one. I've been Bailey, and cheers.